Happy Wednesday, everybody. This video isn't an allegory, but it's a solution to a problem that I have found, kind of like my INIP policy. This is geared towards communications protection. We live in an era where the greatest threat to an operation is not always the obvious one. It is often not the force outside of the gate, but the weakness already inside of the system. These are internal issues, kind of like national security, where a lot of our national securities and domestic terrorism issues lie within rather than outside. The over-trusted credential, the compromised insider, the device that appears compliant, the workflow nobody thought to question. The assumption that familiarity equals safety. In high-risk environments, that assumption is no longer merely outdated. It's kind of dangerous. So the question is no longer, how do we keep the bad actors out? The real question is, how do we preserve mission integrity, protect civilians, and maintain continuity when compromise can emerge from any direction? 360, all the way around, including from within. What I want to explain today is a protective communications framework built around that reality itself. A model not based on blind trust, but on verification, segmentation, resilience, and, well, disciplined control. Because in modern operations, security is not defined by the absence of threats. It is defined by whether the system can endure them without collapsing into itself. What I'm going to be talking about today is a protective communications concept designed for lawful, authorized operations in high-risk or contested environments. The purpose is not secrecy here for its own sake. The purpose is to protect civilians, people, that work 9-to-5s, regular people living regular lives, non-military, I guess you could say. Protect missions, protect sensitive information, and keep operations functioning even if something goes wrong. The core idea here is simple. You do not build a system assuming everyone inside is safe and everybody outside is dangerous. While that logic has proved tried and true, most of these issues these days start internally. Now, the smarter ones start internally. It's like an inception of the system, if you will. You built it assuming compromise can happen anywhere, including from the inside, and you designed a system so nobody breaches, does not collapse everything else. So first, who is this for? The kind of framework is for organizations or teams that operate in environments where communications, planning, identity, and coordination matter at a very high level. That could mean government teams, emergency management, lawfully authorized security operations, intelligence support functions, critical infrastructure defenders, or any mission environment where failure of communications could put people at risk. It is also for leadership, analysts, technical staff, legal oversight, and anybody responsible for making sure operations stay controlled, accountable, and resilient under pressure. You can also apply this logic to your everyday life with your surrounding circle, your friends, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. It's logic layered over other aspects and concepts of life. It is not just for engineers. It is for everybody who touches the system, because communication security is not only a hardware problem or a software problem. It is also a human problem, a trust problem, and a process problem. Second, what is it? At its heart, this is a communication resilience model. It is a way of organizing communications so that no single person, device, application, or trust assumption becomes the weak point that takes down an entire mission. It's kind of like a system administration permission setup where you need a token to communicate with other people of a certain level of permissions or authority within a network. Or people abusing single sign-on access points and enterprise access because they have stolen software, and trying to reroute traffic and spoofing devices so it appears that the problem is over here when it's really back there. Instead of thinking we have one secure network so everything inside of it is trusted, this framework says the opposite. Every request, every user, every device, and every workflow has to be verified according to what it is trying to access. That means protecting resources, not just protecting a perimeter. The system is segmented, access gets limited, identity gets verified, device health matters. And device health means people cloning devices, backdoor access to mock sites and dev apps that are mimicking other services, things of that nature. And monitoring is a continuous process, not just a hit or miss where, registers a red flag. It is a continuous cycle. If someone is compromised, overprivileged, malicious, careless, or simply wrong, the damage is supposed to stay contained, not spread everywhere. Third, when do you use a model like this? You use it when the stakes are high enough that you cannot afford to rely on assumptions. You use it before a crisis, during a crisis, and after a compromise. Before a crisis, it helps you build strong foundations, identity management, segmentation, logging, role-based access, and mission continuity. During a crisis, it helps you stay functional enough if pieces of the system fail or become suspect. After a compromise, it helps you isolate the issue, preserve evidence, contain a blast radius, and continue essential operations. In other words, this is not just a wartime model or a disaster model, it is a continuity model. It is built for the reality that things break, people make mistakes, insiders can become risks, and missions still have to continue. You don't stop a mission simply because of a simple interruption or speed bump. It must go on until it ends the objective. Subjectively, you don't stop because something interrupts. Objectively, it goes on regardless. Fourth, where does this apply? It applies anywhere sensitive coordination occurs. Physical sites, digital environments, multi-agency response systems, field operations, command layers, logistic chains, and decision-making platforms. It applies across devices, networks, cloud environments, applications, and identity systems. This is very important. It also applies socially because the where is not only geographical or digital, it is also organizational. This is where some people like to hide behind geofences, VoIPs, or VPNs. They think that masks their organizational structure of the interference that they may be attempting, if you will. It does not. A compromise can happen in a message chain, a help desk workflow, a contractor relationship, a shared credential, a trusted insider, or a routine approved process. That is why the model does not focus on external threats. It focuses very heavily on internal trust failure. When the threat infiltrates through access, familiarity, authority, or human weakness instead of through brute force. It's like if somebody has a clone of your device, they're technically mirroring your authority so they can access certain things that they really shouldn't, based off of weakness and the internal access point. We can fix that. Now, let's get to the most important part of why this is needed. Because the old assumption, keep the bad guy outside and trust everything inside, does not hold up well anymore at all. Most of these attacks are through backdoors internally. In real life, threats are often mixed. Some come from the outside, some come from insiders, some come through stolen credentials, social engineering, compromised devices, overbroad permissions, and routine processes that most people don't think to question. They put them in motion. It's supposed to be autonomous. My apologies. It's supposed to be an autonomous function, routine, and then people get backdoor access and then infect internally through this process. If a system assumes trust too broadly, then one successful compromise can move laterally, escalate, and contaminate everything. This framework exists to stop that. Its purpose is to make systems hard to misuse, easy to segment, and resilient under compromise. Another major reason it matters is because internal threats are often more dangerous than external ones. External attacks usually have to break in. That's going to be a little bit more obvious. Internal threats may already have access, familiarity, and credibility. That could be a malicious insider, a compromised employee, a contractor with too much access, a careless user, or somebody pressured in helping. Like people that get blackmailed or possibly somebody you're dating might have access to your things. So this model includes a special emphasis on internal infiltration. That means watching for unusual privilege use, unusual timing, unusual access paths, policy violations, behavioral drifts, and mismatches between what somebody should be doing and what they're actually doing. But just as importantly, it means designing the system so that no one person has more reach than they truly need. It's limiting and restricting access in terms of military clearances. Like you might need X amount of clearance levels to talk to this person, or you might need to have like level 3 access to access these permissions or data files or compartmentalized information, or you might need, it's graded, and you are restricted and limited to your specific integral role in the mechanism. A gear in a watch isn't simply spinning for the entire watch, it is simply spinning for its purpose. In the larger picture, it is one piece, spinning for one piece solely, propelling the rest of the picture individually in its own simple role. Less privilege is not just an efficiency concept, it is a damage control concept. So if I were to explain the structure simply, I would say that there are 5 pillars, like 5 points on a star, contained. The first pillar is going to be identity. You must know who or what is requesting access. Not just usernames and passwords, but strong identity proofing, multi-factor authentication, and lifecycle control. People change roles. Devices age. Contractors leave. Threats adapt. Identity must stay current, attributable, and revocable. The second pillar is going to be access control and segmentation. You do not give broad access because it is convenient. You give narrow access because compromise is real. Different missions, data types, and communication functions should be split into zones. It's like heating zones in a house. You don't have one zone for a 3-story house on 3 different levels. You zone it out. Each zone is different. If one zone fails, the others can survive. That keeps the blast radius small. It's limiting damage control. The third pillar is device and system trust. Access is not just about the person, it is also about the condition of the device and service being used. A valid user on a compromised device is still going to be at risk. So posture does matter here. Patching, integrity, telemetry, configuration, and compliance all matters. Our fourth pillar is going to be continuous monitoring here. Not surveillance for its own sake, but accountability, mission-relevant visibility, logs, access patterns, endpoint behavior, application activity, and identity events need to be correlated so misuse can be detected early and interference can start sooner than later. A safe system is not one that assumes nothing bad is happening. A safe system is one that can notice when something starts going wrong immediately. The sooner the better. Our fifth and final pillar here is going to be resilience and recovery. Even good systems fail sometimes, so you need backups, fallback paths, continuity procedures, incident response, legal oversight, and a structure for containment. The question is never just, can we prevent compromise? No, it's not 100%, 95 at best. The better question is, if compromise happens, can we continue safely and recover early? Now, let me add the internal threat piece in plain language here, because that is where people often underestimate the problem. Internal threats do not always look dramatic. They rarely announce themselves as villains. They often look like convenience, familiarity, exceptions, urgency, or overtrust. They can come from somebody who already belongs there, and that's the problem. These people get these roles or get these positions like corrupt officers or corrupt judges. They get these roles, they incept the inside, and they spread like a virus, like cancer. They pull in other people, they start blackmailing people, and that is how they expand their network. That is how the problem begins. One is bad for the plenty of many. That is why the framework says do not trust because somebody is inside. Trust only according to what they need, what they are doing, what they are using, and whether it still matches policy and mission. Internal defense is not about paranoia. It's about structure. Structural integrity. When an engineer is designing a tower, they are not developing a tower with an unstable base. They are planning in accordance to Earth movement, natural disasters, common weather patterns over historical timelines. They're engineering these things to sustain. Sustainability is the key. Survivability is the bigger picture. Can it sustain? Will it live? Longevity, if you will. It is all about recognizing that trust without verification becomes fragility. If somebody asks, so is this just about locking everything down? No, not necessarily. It is actually about creating safe functions under pressure. A badly designed secure system becomes unusable. A well-designed one allows the right work to continue while sharply limiting misuse. It leaves no room for error. It's like the Japanese have a system they call Six Sigma. It is projecting and considering all possible variables and contingencies to avoid disaster. A very well thought out process. They use it in manufacturing facilities. They kind of like itemize lists of possible things that might go wrong and plan according to those variables, if you will. So this model is not anti-operations. It's pro-mission. It is meant to keep operations working even when the conditions get ugly or misguided. If somebody asks, what is the biggest idea behind all of this? I'm going to respond, assume compromise, design for containment, verify continuously, and protect the mission without over-trusting the environment, as environmental factors and conditions can be engineered to alter course and or path. It's like somebody impeding on your path. If you have something to do in life, they can engineer things around you. Same logic applies everywhere else. I use a lot of things as an analogy for all aspects of life because it is all an onion. It is all layerable. It's a cake. It layers in many levels. You can use it across many different constructs. That's why I use nature to correspond with life, physics, religion, perspection, reality. All these things correlate. They interoperate within one another. It's a very useful strategy that I use. So if I had to compress the entire thing into one final paragraph for people who only remember one thing, this would be it. This framework is a modern protective communications model for high-risk, lawful operations. It is for teams that need to protect people, sensitive information, and mission continuity in environments where both external attacks and internal compromise are very real things. It works by verifying identity continuously, limiting access tightly, segmenting systems so one failure does not infect everything else, monitoring activity for early warnings, and planning for resilience instead of assuming perfect security. Its deeper purpose is very simple here. Not to make an operation invisible, but to make it durable, accountable, and survivable when all trust fails. This is my idea that I'm going to be pitching. I have a PDF that I'm going to be sending to a few senators and other things. I have been busying my time focusing on myself and considering public issues and addressing them with a very real, logical, feasible, easy, applicable solutions, if you will. So rather than just bitching about everything on Facebook, I'm considering an alternative route of how we can fix it. I feel like a scientist in the world. It's quite wonderful. I don't have a very chaotic distraction constantly attacking and targeting me, so I've had a very abundant amount of time to expand my thought process lately. Very, very productive time. So this is my idea that I have. I feel like it. Give it a thumbs up. I will have more. Believe that. I'll see you later.